Hello and welcome to White Belt Angular. I'm some random guy on the internet. In our last video, we wired up routing for our Angular project, and today we're going to do something that takes it in a slightly different direction. One of the things that I've learned about coding is that you should always try to make sure you get your destinations set up. And when I say that, I mean it's not unusual for clients to say, go ahead and develop it locally or develop it on some test server, and we'll give you your production server closer to the time when you're supposed to deploy it. I have had projects that have gone past the deployment date without actually receiving my production server. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to set up my production environment as soon as possible, because ultimately what you're developing for is a production environment. So going back to our project, we had set up our routes. You can see here we have route home, Bravo, Charlie. What I want to do now is something I've referred to. I don't know if there's like a real name for it, but I call it channel awareness. Basically, we want to know where the application is running, because here it's running locally on my test server, but I'll deploy it to my public-facing website, and I might also deploy it to some other site, like if it's something that I'm selling to a customer, or I could deploy it to a SharePoint site. So, to give an idea of what location awareness or channel awareness is, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into the code. If you remember, I set up my app and I set up navigation. Seems like a good place to do channel awareness to me. So we're going to go ahead and just open up our navigation component, and we're going to declare a new variable. So this new variable is called page title, and all it says is loading. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and then I'm going to go to the navigation component, and here you can see where it says alpha, and here you can see where that appears on the page. I'm just going to change that, and I'm going to make it a template item, and it's going to be the page title. I save it, and it says loading. Pretty simple. So I want to do something that I'll call getting the channel. That's basically saying, where are we displaying this at? Where is this thing running? So we're going to do that with a new method. And first thing the channel is going to look for is the href, or basically the location. And second thing we're going to do is split that location by the slashes. Third thing we're going to do is pull the current node, or the first node, because we're going to basically walk through this location. And then we're going to go ahead and display that current node. And of course I did not call the method, so If we switch back to our code, we'll see that nothing has changed. So down here in the constructor, we're going to go ahead and call getChannel. And you can see the current node is HTTP. So I won't bore you with the details on the rest of this, because this is actually, it's kind of basic JavaScript, but we're going to display something different based on where the page is being displayed at. And I'm trying to do a quick copy and paste from some code that I had set up so that we don't spend the whole time like watching me type. Instead of doing that, we will just replace all of getChannel. This is a part of it that's kind of like watching the sausage being made, because it fails to compile. All right. So I will just go ahead and sort of build this out. All right, so here we see that the current node is HTTP. So we're going to do something if it's HTTP. And conversely, we're going to do something if it's HTTPS. So we know that this should only fire here because we're running locally. So if it's HTTP, then we're going to select the second item in the current node, and we're going to set the domain see how that looks. All right, so what we've done is we're splitting off the HTTP and we're splitting off the 4200, and we're just taking localhost. So if the current node, let's do that one more time. So if the current node is localhost, we're going to say page title is yubtub local. Otherwise, if it's yubtub.club, which is a site that we have set up, and I want to go ahead and get rid of that. So we're saying we're going to split the HTTP off. We're going to split off the port, which will take us away from running locally, and we're going to look for localhost. If it's localhost, then we're going to say yubtub local. If it's not localhost, meaning if it's running on the production server, that's yubtub.club, then we're going to say that it's running publicly. However, if it's running HTTPS, which is a case you won't see here just yet. First, let's see how this runs. Right, so that compiles locally. But if we're running HTTPS, which would be the case if we were doing something, say, in a SharePoint environment, then we want to display something that recognizes that fact. And if all is well, you'll see that nothing changes here because we are running locally. So we're going to move on to the next step, which is building and deploying. And there are a lot of different ways to do your builds and deployments. I'm still new to this, and I kind of get hung up on some of the errors that can come about with it. So I'm going to show you the hard way. And at some point, when you understand the problems that arise from doing it the hard way, you can move on to doing it the easy way. But I mean, you're always going to need to know the hard way so that you can figure out what you did wrong if you did something wrong. So I'm opening up a new PowerShell, and I'm just going to do a build. And this is just a straight build to the local directory. And we wait. And we wait some more. In the comments, if you have any tips on how I can speed up the build times, or actually, if you have any tips on how to automate this whole building process, that's something that I haven't really, dived too far into yet. So, I'm always looking for tips. So with my code built, I can scroll up here and I see that it's in a directory called dist. And I'm going to copy the path. And I'm going to move over here to my FTP server. I'm going to go ahead and connect, and here you can see my local path, and here you can see my remote path. So the assumption with the remote server, the FTP server, the web server, is that it's going to be running at the root. So I'm just going to take all of this and upload it to the root. You'll see that it's all transferred, and let's go ahead and go back here. So this is our local server, and this is our remote server. and you can see that it's yubtub public as opposed to being yubtub local. So we're going to take this one last step. We're going to upload it to a SharePoint server because the same concepts, generally speaking, should work across the board. So I'm going to navigate to, I've got SharePoint Designer opened, and I'm in my yubtub project, and I'm looking in the directory where I'm going to have this running. It's called app, and I've got my files here. It seems to have hung up. All right, I'm going to try it again. All right, I'm going to just drag these over here somewhere, and going to just drag these files here. Now, there are several things that you'll run into if you try doing Angular projects in SharePoint. The first one you run into is, I think, an encoding error. So I'm going to solve all those problems at once. I'm going to show you what is wrong with it at first. The first problem is that you can't serve HTML files in SharePoint. They have to be ASPX. So I'm going to change this to default.aspx, and I'll try to view it in my browser. And of course, Angular will not display in a Internet Explorer browser, so you have to use a modern browser. But even with a modern browser, you'll see that something went wrong, and it's easy to think that this is a SharePoint issue, but there's actually several issues at play. So the first thing we're going to solve is what I think is an encoding error. I'm going to open up the file in Visual Studio. Note that I'm doing it in Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code. If somebody has anything to say about that encoding error, to give me some guidance on how to do it without Visual Studio, I'm all ears. So it says line endings are not consistent. I think that this has something to do with the encoding. So I make the line endings consistent, and I'm going to save the file. With SharePoint, you have to go back to SharePoint to actually see that change uploaded, and I'm going to refresh the page. All right, so I'm getting an error, but it's not the same error. So the second thing I'm going to do is copy that, basically the path to my file, and see here, first I'm going to go ahead and format this. So this is all formatted so you can see everything, but the references are not set properly. So first thing I'm going to do is set the base href here, and then scrolling down, I'm going to set these file locations, because if you look, the file isn't located in the root. The file is located in a directory in a document library. Okay, so I'm going to save this, switch back, and then when I bring it up again, you can see that it says yubtub intranet. So that's the basics of basically channel awareness and deployment to my production website and my production intranet site. And if you get a chance, go ahead and take a look at yubtub.club. That's where this is being displayed right now. That's where some of the new files and new changes in the future modules will be posted. Thanks, and have a great day.